Hello and welcome to the Linux Spotlight. This show is dedicated to showing off the best thing about Linux, our community. This community is made up of developers, distro maintainers, YouTube personalities, and everyday users. Each one plays a vital role in our community, and the goal is to have a discussion with each individual about their journey into Linux and beyond. So join me now as we turn the spotlight on. Hello, I'm your host Rocco, and with me today is a super special guest, Ell Marquez. How are you,
everyone? I don't even wait. I'm just like, hi.
That's all good. So, first of all, thank you for joining me. Second of all, everybody knows you by your username on Twitter and everywhere else. LO Punk. So, this is like an interesting name. So where did this come from?
The name actually came from a few years ago. I decided that I wanted to play roller derby. I was really excited, but you have to bring in like another persona, right? You have to be somebody else out on the track. And I couldn't come up with something. And just at the time I was reading the book Clockwork Orange. And at some point, like the two worlds just kind of collided, and somebody out there just said, all right, come on, hello, Punk, get out here. And I was like, wait, what? Like, it was just the perfect moment, and I've never been able to give it up since. Like, my persona just kind of disappeared, and everyone just knows hello, Punk now.
Awesome. Very awesome. See, I think this is one thing that's underrated in the community. People's usernames, like there are definite meanings behind them, and people like just glaze over them. But I think it's awesome to get to know everybody's username.
I think that whenever you're given your username, you kind of try to live up to it or either become it. It's weird. It becomes a persona. And I always say, you know, LO Punk is the version of L that I want to be.
All right. You seem to be like everywhere in the Linux world. You speak at conferences. You go to like a ton of pretty much every single Linux conference, fest, whatever it is, except for Self, which I'm still mad you didn't go because I didn't get to meet you there. But so besides all of the conferences and your job, who is Ell Marquez?
Yeah, I've actually thought about that a lot. And, you know, in the end, I think I'm somebody with an Alice complex. Like, I see the white rabbit, I see the squirrel, and I chase it. And I just always end up in these crazy adventures that the amount of times somebody has said, it can only happen to Ell, or don't worry, it's just Ell, is so high. Because I just always end up, hey, meet my friend, he's a kernel developer, or hey, meet this person, like they're insanely famous in the roller derby world, but I just ran up and started talking to them. And I don't know, curiosity is just really at the core of who I am.
Very nice. Do you have any hobbies besides roller derby?
Unfortunately, I can't play anymore, but right now I'm doing the mom gig. And so because I spend so much time living on airplanes, when I'm home, I'm just all about them right now.
Yep. Hey, family, it comes first, just the way it is. So your bio says that you are a community architect for Linux Academy. So
That's right.
Tell us about your job.
That it's always funny because when people ask me, you know, what is it that you do for a living? It's so hard to pinpoint because I just do whatever needs to be done. You know, I've done podcasting, I go and do talks, I mentor anybody and everybody who asks. So I think what I came up with today that I actually tweeted out was, what I do as a community architect is I go and I learn new things, I break them, and then I go find the people who know how to fix it and work with them to teach other people how not to break them in the first place. Like, it's such a convoluted thing, but it's so difficult for anyone to get their start in tech or to figure out what it is that they're supposed to be learning because there's this fear of the unknown. Yep. And I just figure if I go and break it first and try it out, then what are you going to be scared about? It's already been done. Let's come do this together, you know?
Well, I think I could rival you for being able to break any system because I have this knack for pretty much being able to break anything. So
I said that during my interview. I said, "Hi, my name is Elle. I create break fixes."
all right. So sometimes I will, and I've said this before, sometimes I will get tunnel vision as far as Linux, and because I focus specifically on the desktop for Linux, I sometimes think that that's all that Linux is for the desktop, but it's so much more than that. I mean, from servers in the cloud to Mac machines to POS machines to just tech related in general. Pretty much anything that you're doing on the web is involving Linux somehow. So this goes back to what you do, and what Linux Academy does is help people learn to have real world skills. So tell us about what Linux Academy does.
So, Linux Academy is the world's largest e-learning platform when it comes to open source technology. And basically anything that you want to learn when it comes to the cloud, whether that be Azure or Google or it be just Linux itself, we offer training and courses that are video based. The cool thing for me, and why I was a student before I was even working for the company, was they're done in these small fragments. So it's like 10-minute video, 5-minute video. So you can get it done in between things. And then once you've watched the video, they let you spin up these labs that don't cost anything more on whatever platform that you're learning. And you can go and actually try it hands on. So when I decided I wanted to be an OpenStack trainer, I went and took some of the training and then had access to actual OpenStack deployments that I could practice and break quite frequently without being worried about it. I'm like, oh, it's broken, just delete it, spin up some new ones.
That's almost like the best scenario, is to be able to break it and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about the bill, because when I was first starting out learning AWS, I made the mistake of leaving a box on, and I didn't realize it till I got the bill. Nope.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So you work at Linux Academy, but you work in the business world. So how do you find Linux being received in the business world itself?
I think that when I tell people what I do, the first thing they always say is they go, Linux. I've always wanted to look into that. And I just kind of laugh, because I'll look down and they're using an Android phone. And I'm like, well, you've already looked into it. And, with the exception of the few people who are using Apple-based products, most of them have interacted with Linux in some form. There are very few, just diehards that don't ever interact with other systems. We had a situation where I was at a conference and I was going down in the hotel, and we look over and there is actually a Lyft Linux OS that this elevator is running on. I look at the guy and I was like, did you know you use Linux? I think that people really just need to view the world around them and realize how many of the systems they're interacting with, that they're already using Linux without even worrying about it.
Right. I agree. We were down at Self, and me and Zeb were walking to the conference through the hotel itself, and a lady that worked there came up to us and said hello and everything, and she says, so what is this thing Linux? And right away Zeb jumped right in and said, hey, do you know this? Do you know you're using Linux in this? Do you know you're using Linux in that? And it was an awesome conversation, because she didn't realize that it was like that. She didn't realize that Linux was here or there, and yeah, that's the fun conversations.
Yeah, just pointed out that they don't have to be stressed about using Linux, because they've been doing it all along.
Yep. On your bio page, you have a ton of projects that are listed. A ton of projects that you're currently working on, and a ton of projects that you have worked on. So is there one or two that you could pick out to say, this is my favorite course or training seminar that you gave or did?
So my favorite by far so far has been a talk that I'm doing with Acid Goddess, or Ali, called Confessions of a Sysadmin. And at some point, I don't know what happened, but that barrier that I'm afraid to just have a real conversation with what we call neckbeards in the talk kind of died down. And I'm like, I don't care what you think about me. I'm going to let you know how it is. And so we just went down and started going through a lot of the experiences that we started when we were starting out in the Linux world, like people being, telling us, well, how do you not know this? Or you can't be a good admin if you don't use Arch. or you can't. And all of these artificial rules that were built up around us that we defied, and yet somehow we're still successful Linux admins.
Yep.
So it's been, I don't know, it's been like a rebirth. Like I've gotten all of my drama out there. I've gotten all of the truths out there. And now I just don't feel encumbered. So that by far, I think, has been my most successful project, is just being honest, being transparent.
Even when you get locked in a room?
Even when we get locked in a server room, you know, I don't know. That was the first time we gave that talk, that we got locked in that server room too.
So I know about it, but tell everybody what happened there.
So Allie and I had been working on this talk without ever being in the same room. So we've just been doing it over like phone calls and working on our slides back and forth. So about 30 minutes before the talk, we said, all right, we need to find some place and just kind of pace this out. So they're nice enough to allow us to go practice in the server room. I don't know where their security was, or they trusted us enough from Twitter to allow us to go unsupervised into a server room, and they closed the door behind us. So we're sitting there, we go through it, we think we get it done, and about 5 minutes before the talk, we go over to the door and we can't get out. Now we've got the computer, but we're not on any type of connection, and we're thinking like, which one of these wires do we have to pull? And how many wires do we have to pull before someone comes and checks in the server room?
It was so awesome. You were tweeting out about it. It was so awesome. I was rolling.
You know, we figured what's funny is we're on Twitter basically asking for help, but tell me that one of us did not think about just calling someone for help. Like, that was nowhere in our minds.
Yes, but in those situations, you know, you don't always think of the perfect thing to do. Just the way it is when those things happen. So it was perfect that you tweeted about it. That was perfect.
It was a live tweet escape room.
So did someone finally come and let you out?
Yes. So the guy that had let us in there finally realized that we were 5 minutes late to our talk and came to see what was going on.
Nice.
We weren't nervous anymore, though, at that point. We just went with it. You know, right? What else could happen?
Hey, it's all good then, right?
Yep.
So before we get into your Linux experience, let's go back to the very beginning where you first see a computer. What is the first computer you see and, you know, use?
I actually had to go digging to try to find this out the other day, because it's a question that I get asked a lot. And I didn't have a childhood that was full of computers or anything. You know, I grew up on a farm. I was very much a let's go ride horses and play in the dirt kind of kid. But I was talking to my brother, and he reminded me that when I was little, he had gotten a IBM PS1. I believe that's what he told me it was. I don't remember. And he'd let me use it. But at some point I'd figured out that his password was saved in clear text and he was running a BBS system. And apparently I guess was a hacker mindset ever since then, went in and started trying to help him with his BBS.
Wow.
And he never let me get on the computer again. So
I don't blame him. A hacker from way back.
Yep. It was a very short-lived experiment. So, you know, outside of phones and, you know, tablets, I really have never been a computer person, which is really funny to say, but never been my strong suit.
Hey, that's the way it is. So when do you become that computer person as far as I hear Linux? Where did you hear the word Linux?
So I hit a low point in my life where I was basically a bunch of stuff had gone bad, and I was on the verge of losing my home, and I just needed something. I needed something to be able to do. And somebody told me about a program that was being started here in San Antonio called Linux for Ladies. I didn't know what it was, but they said, don't worry about it. You know, they're teaching you from the ground up. So I went to an info session. I found out if I was able to get my Net Plus, I could go through this program that would then get me an interview at Rackspace. Now, that seems great, but I don't know what Rackspace is. I really didn't know what Linux was even after that. So I just went and I studied like I'm good at school, and I learned a little bit. I got my Net Plus. I would say that I actually knew what Linux was about 3 weeks into that 6-week program. Like the first 2 weeks was just a monkey with a keyboard. They're telling me to type things. I'm like, okay, user add, was that add user? Wait, both of them work, it'll be fine.
But you were using your your born given skills of hacking when you were little to, increase your knowledge. So there you go.
I mean, it wasn't my computer. What's the worst that could happen, right? I'm
Right?
just I was the first person in that class to kernel panic.
Uh-oh. Hey, but that's great though when you're the first person, because then everybody else behind you gets to learn it.
Yep. We all learned how to do a restore and what snapshots were, and that we were actually on thin clients because they didn't actually trust us on real systems. So we learned a lot that day.
I bet your teacher or the trainer, whoever it was glad that you did that. Just saying.
I hope so.
All right. So you hear about Linux. How do you get to the point where you say, I want to install this on my system?
It took a while, to be honest with you. When I got hired, they handed us a Mac because they wanted us to be on these controlled devices, right? If you ran Linux, they would offer absolutely no support, which is really funny to say. Like, I am trusted to work on a Linux system, but if I break something, I can't get any help. It was counterintuitive. So I was scared. I was like, if I break my box, then I am down. I'm not working. I'm going to get fired. That whole process just kind of builds up.
Right.
And when I transitioned over to the OpenStack world, I had a mentor who was like, okay, if you break it, do you really think you'll never be able to find someone that'll help you fix it? And it was one of those moments like, oh yeah, I kind of work in a company full of Linux admins. So that was really what I needed to just kind of take the first step and start. I used Linux in a VM first. I wasn't even brave enough to kick the box and put it on there. I can't say why I was so scared, but slowly I started realizing that, yeah, you're going to break it, but it's okay. Kind of everybody does, and somebody out there can help you put it back together again.
All right. So you have this first experience with Linux in a VM, and, do you want to talk about that as far as your first experience, or do you want to talk about the first time you actually installed it on hardware as far as the pros and cons are concerned?
I think the first time that I really installed on hardware was the first, real commitment to, okay, I'm going to be a Linux user. And okay, full transparency, that was only about 6 months ago that I just embraced the Linux desktop. I never really had a reason to work with it outside of servers. Like, I was a Linux admin. My box did nothing other than allow me to SSH into an OpenStack or a Linux environment. It didn't matter what I was running.
Right.
Then when I went into the podcasting world and started kind of really exploring open source technologies, so much of it is Linux, based. And I started trying to come to terms with it's okay to use the GUI. Like, that is such a strange statement to make, but when you're a Linux admin, you are looked down upon so many times if you're using GUI tools. And that's ridiculous, but it's the truth. So I kind of got addicted to distro hopping and trying to figure everything out and trying to learn it. So my very first, all right, I'm doing this, was somebody telling me that I should try Deepin because it was very similar to Mac. And they were like, it's like if Mac and Linux had a baby. Except for the fact that all of the help docs are written in another language.
Yeah, that. Yeah, I don't think it's quite that what you said, but or what they said. But it is nice though. Deepin is a very elegant looking desktop. It's just no, it's not for me. I can say that.
It's beautiful. It is completely beautiful. And if you have a 4K screen, you should at least try it for a little bit. Eventually, you never learn to speak the language, but you kind of learn to speak the workflow that it works in.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet I could use it, but I am somebody who constantly tries to install something or update something that breaks it. So I need to be able to understand the docs to be effective.
Yeah. A tinkerer. That's what we call it.
There you go.
All right. Do you still use Windows Mac for any purpose?
No, I haven't used a Mac in a while. Windows, I just started using for the first time this week because I'm trying to figure out how to use Hyper-V. I've heard so much about it and so much about the work that is occurring with, the Linux subsystem for Windows. But I thought, you know what? The OS wars are over. It's time to just move on and learn whatever skill it is that I need to have. So, the guys at Jupiter were nice enough to let me borrow a computer, and I've been tinkering with Hyper-V and trying to figure out really how that differs from other types of virtualization. And I've, yet to figure out how to convert OVA files to be able to run on it, but it's going to be a process, and I'll be happy when I figure it out.
But you'll figure it out and you'll learn it. No, I personally dual boot Windows just for the sole reason of playing one or two games that still have not come to Linux. But I always tell everybody, you use what is best for you or best for your situation at that time, whether that's work or personal or whatever. So, so have you ever walked into Best Buy and just wanted to install Linux on every computer there?
So a really funny story about that, actually. So I recently admitted that I had never owned my own computer. Really, I just have never had the need, because I've always worked at places that are here, you need a computer, take it. What are you going to do with it? And I was at Best Buy kind of just playing around with the computers, just trying to see what's there. And I really don't know how to go into a system on Windows and try to figure out what the resources are on a box. And so I pull up PowerShell thinking it'll be like df-h or something similar, right? I was already going downhill here.
Right.
I'm there trying to figure it out. And one of the guys from Best Buy walks over and he just closes the window on me. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes that just happens." And I'm like, what kind of computer system is this that, PowerShell just sometimes happens? That's a t-shirt, by the way. PowerShell just sometimes happens. But no, you didn't just close down my terminal. First of all, you don't touch someone's terminal.
Right.
Second of all, so yeah, I didn't buy a computer at Best Buy. And now if I could, I probably would go put Linux on all of the systems.
Well, there is one individual in the Biddle community that has been known to install elementary OS on Best Buy computers. Just saying. We'll leave chicken out of this, though.
Do they run a Patreon?
Nobody might now. So you are heavily involved in Jupiter Broadcasting. You guest on shows like Linux Unplugged, User Error. And I just listened to the latest Unplugged where you guys did, all four of you guys did the 2019 news and what was really, really cool about it. But you're on different podcasts, but there's one specifically, Choose Linux, that was started by Joe Resington and Jason Evangelo, and now it is Joe Resington, you, and Drew. So everybody knows Choose Linux, but tell us about it.
So Choose Linux is really a podcast that was created to kind of further that excitement that you get when you're learning something new and when you're trying out a new Linux distro or perhaps trying out Linux for the first time. There's, I don't know, to me, a childhood excitement to it. What am I going to learn? What's going to be different? And even when it comes to trying out just different open source applications themselves, there's always a learning curve. There was a need somewhere and somebody created this program, but what am I going to use it for? So to me, that's really been what Choose Linux is about. And I'm sure that Joe or Jason might be able to give you a different viewpoint. But even when I was listening to the show when it first came out, that was the most exciting part, is what did they do now and how did it break?
Right.
That seems to be a recurring theme.
Well, trying out distros is so exciting. And for me, it's I usually try it as the developer intended. So if they install this thing or put it this way, I try to use it. The geek in me wants to go and customize it exactly the way I want to. Yeah. But what I end up doing is trying it for at least a short while exactly the way they intended. And you know what? I ended up learning new kind of workflows that I didn't know before. So GNOME, for example. I was never a big GNOME fan. I was always a KDE fan. And then I switched to GNOME and forced myself to basically use it the way the developers intended it. And, now if I'm installing a system after I've tried it the way the developers wanted it, I usually end up making it look like GNOME just because of the workflow. So
I get that. I think the hardest part for me with distro hopping has been people automatically go, well, you could do this through the command line. I'm like, but that's not the point. The point is for me to learn the GUI and to see how it's supposed to work. And if I'm always just going back to what I've always done, how am I ever going to get better?
Right? You have to know all of it to be able to talk to everybody about it. Because if you just know one thing, you're not going to be able to bring that. Like, say, you're used to the terminal or whatever. If you don't know the GUIs, you're not going to be able to bring that new person that doesn't want to use the terminal. So
it's one of the things I always laugh about was talking about an XKCD comic that, like, all right, this bomb is going to explode unless you can, untar this file without using the man pages, and you can't Google, and everybody's just standing there like, and I laugh because that's so true. How many people sit there and try to figure out every freaking flag that they need in order to untar a file instead of just going to the GUI, left clicking extract, and moving on with their life?
Yes. Exactly. I love it.
I love because I start telling that story, everybody wanders off for a moment and they start trying to figure out the flags in their head.
Well, I'm trying a distro out, and I'll go and use the GUI to update it, and it'll fail. And they'll say, well, you could just update it through the terminal. I know I could update it through the terminal, but I mean, I'm trying to use the GUI because that's what it's there for. It's there to update it. So, yeah.
No, my big distro war that happened that unfortunately everybody was way too aware of because it happened on Twitter was because I broke the OS clicking the button that said update, and everybody said, don't you know you're not supposed to do that?
Yep.
Why is there a button that says update if I'm not supposed to use it?
There's a button. I got to click it, right?
That's the rule. Them's the rules. I didn't make them up.
So you being in the podcast world, do you have a list of podcasts that you listen to?
So I have to do my best not to just do shameless plugs, because I do really listen to everything that we produce, and I listen to you too. That's, I think, how we got to know each other. I don't even know. But outside of our world, I am a huge fanatic for Darknet Diaries. I love what he's doing. That's the kind of podcaster I want to be. His ability just to sit down, take an insanely complicated subject, tell it in a story form, and still educate you during that. I took a 5-hour car trip with my kids who are 9 and 11, and they listened to every episode and asked questions, and that's mind-blowing to me.
But that's a gift that not everybody has. I mean, that is a total gift that you can take a complicated story and not just tell people about it, but tell a story through it. So,
I mean, the fact that he just stops and says, well, so in the story, you heard the word attack vector. What that actually means is, and then ties it in. So it's part of the story and you understand, even though they're using acronyms or, security jargon.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So I usually follow and listen to pretty much every podcast I possibly can. Although I don't have as much time to listen to podcasts anymore. I used to have like an hour drive one way for work, and that gave me tons of time to listen to podcasts. Now I have like a 2-minute drive to work. So that's kind of like out the window. But going back, relating that back to the distro hoppers, that is what I feel excites me to try all of these new distributions, like, listening to Choose Linux and hearing your guys' stories of how you tried it and what the new features are, is really exciting to me. And I guess what I'm saying is, how many Linux desktop environments and distros have you tried?
Oh man. So
or
many.
All of them, all of the above is good.
Yeah, I actually had to start a GitHub for this. There is a GitHub page where I start documenting the distros that I'm trying, what I've installed in them, and then my error logs when something goes wrong. Because the first thing somebody says is, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, if you go to my GitHub, here it is. So, but I would say I change distros probably every 2 weeks to a month.
Wow, you are a distro hopper.
There's too many things to try. And then just when you think you're done, Fedora goes to Fedora like 7, and you're just like, what? Or, Red Hat 8. So just when you think you're done, they change it up on you.
Yep. Now, that's interesting that you say you have a GitHub page to document all this, because I try so hard to document the things that I go through when I distro hop, and I'm so terrible at it. But because like you can then go back and tell people about your experience, but I forget half the stuff that I went through with it. So how did you get to the point where I mean, is that the type of person you are that you were able to document it or what?
So, I hope this is okay to say. I was doing the distro challenge with Jason for OpenSUSE, and things did not go according to plan. I pushed the button that apparently I wasn't supposed to push. And the conversation kind of quickly turned around to, well, you should have known not to do it. You shouldn't have done this. What did you do? And I did encounter some of the aspects of the community that I am not a fan of, a little bit of the you should know concept. And when I couldn't tell them right away what had happened, what the error looked like, what did I do besides this to try to correct it? There was a lot of, oh, well, just dismissal. So I was like, all right, let's do this again and let me document this. And since you're asking so many questions, here's the log. How can I fix this? And I just kind of used it to try to hold other people accountable because they're saying, hey, it's your fault for not having the logs. Well, okay, I have the logs. It's your turn now.
Yep. That's the easy response, is to say it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it was great because later on, I ran into an issue. I was able to troubleshoot it and install an application. And somebody else on Twitter was like, I can't get this. It's broken. And I was like, oh, here, go to my GitHub. I've outlined exactly how to fix that.
But that's the awesome part, I think, about it, is that other people can benefit from you documenting it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best part, because there's so many people and so many issues that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I seem to find issues that nobody else has.
Yes.
I don't know what I do or what happens, but I just find that you'll go and you'll search for this thing and nobody has this issue, or it happened like, I don't know, 10 years ago on Ubuntu, But yeah, I think
that one Stack Overflow page where somebody says it and then they come back and they're like, oh, okay, I fixed it. And then nothing.
Yeah. They don't even tell you how they fixed it. Yeah. That.
Like liar.
So, I mean, you said you distro hop every, I don't know, 2 weeks or so. So I take it that means that you didn't find the Linux distro that you want to run?
Yep. I almost did. Maybe I just have commitment issues. I don't know. When I tried Pop! OS for the first time, I don't know. I fell in love with Linux all over again. Things just worked. Like it was what I always hear people talk about Windows. Like I want to install something, I push a button and the application's there. Like the native store just worked. It worked with the graphics card that I'd had on my system, which had been giving me a lot of trouble on a lot of distros. And then when I did run into an issue, I went to Twitter, I posted it about it. And I don't know, 30 minutes later, their support team's responding back to me, asking me to come into chat. And they sat in chat and actually worked through that with me. Like that's unheard of for a free product.
Yep. It's awesome.
I stuck around probably the longest with it, maybe 2 months, to be honest with you, before I changed last night. And it was one of the hardest things because I was like, I am going to break things on purpose. And Wes Payne told me, he goes, eventually you'll get tired of stability. And I was like, maybe that's true.
Well, I run Pop! OS as a daily driver. And like I told you beforehand, I run a main machine where that is Pop! OS. And then I have a test machine to test any distros that I want. I got so tired of, having a machine and setting it up and then wanting to find that new feature or that great new feature of, say, KDE, and then losing the whole machine and having to reset it up. So this just works out perfect for me, where I can have a stable machine so I can talk to people like you, and yet have a test machine where I can test any distro I want.
That's something that we, and by we, I mean the Jupiter Broadcasting team, have been playing around with, is getting me a laptop and just leaving it to be production ready for recording and everything. But I don't think I would use it as a daily driver. Like part of doing distro hopping and doing reviews and helping people out is fully immersing yourself in it. And if you can just say, oh, well, it's broken, let me go get my job done over here, are you really giving it an honest try? And I say that being in a very blessed situation where I really can call up my boss and be like, hey, Chris, I hosed my machine again. I'm not going to be around today. And he's just like, all right, take pictures. I know not everyone has that ability. So,
But that does come into play because even on the test machine, like for the main machine, I have 4K monitors. So for the test machine, I don't. So that was an issue for me when I distro hopped, whether or not something would be okay on a 4K monitor, where it isn't a problem on this test machine. And I think that, I'm not able to test some things like that to the extent I normally would have been. So that does play a part.
I mean, if I, I'm using Audacity and I'm trying to install it so that we can record, the next podcast, if I just have a machine already set up, I'm like, oh, well, whatever, it didn't work out. Whereas if I don't, I have an hour to figure out how to make it work. It's, I don't know, maybe that kind of stress just makes you learn things really quickly.
It does. Adapt and overcome.
Yep.
So what is your daily workflow like? I mean, do you have software you use every day, or could you just get by with a tablet?
My days are so different depending if I'm working on the Linux Academy side of the house or if I'm working on the JV side of the house. I kind of jump back and forth. But I would say, like I've mentioned Audacity a few times, that I use probably on a every few hour basis because I'm jumping around, I'm moving drivers, I'm, different using different machines at times. So, which mic is live right now? What's actually recording from? And then obviously we use it to record. I've been trying to learn how to do some audio editing myself. And so I've been trying to learn Reaper, but then I end up cheating and going back to Audacity because it's just easier. And one new application that I have fallen in love with is Node.js because it allows me to be able to kind of I'm a developer now. It allows me to be able to write my slides and do it in real time, share it on GitHub. So you know what? If you like one of my talks, clone that talk, go give it yourself. Like there's only one of me, but if everybody's giving these talks, everybody can get educated. And if you find something wrong with my slides, then you know what, fix it and merge it back up. Like,
right.
It just really helps me open source my education.
Yep.
So,
well, you mentioned that, you use Audacity and tried Reaper. I do the same thing. I use Kdenlive for video editing, and then I try to use like DaVinci Resolve or something, but I go back to Kdenlive because it's so much easier. I mean, not that the DaVinci Resolve is bad to use. It's just that, I'm in the middle of learning it, and it's just more familiar to me to open up Kdenlive than and just edit.
Well, recently I decided that I was going to start streaming my study groups. Like, it's just too hard to get a group of people consistently together in a big town like this because somebody's sick, somebody can't get there. So I just opened it up to the world. And to do that, I've been trying to learn how to use OBS to stream over to Twitch. I thought I knew what I was doing. Like, I have produced video courses through video editing, and everything went well, hopefully people enjoyed them. But the moment I add this one concept of Twitch in it, I suddenly don't know OBS. Nope, just nothing works. That's it. I'm done. Can we just hire an editor, please?
Well, hey, this is all, you know what? Everything that we do is a learning experience. And see, that's why you should be documenting that too on GitHub.
I knew that I was old when I looked over at somebody who was mentoring me and went, "Can I get a Twitch for Dummies book, please?"
All right. I will always say that the community is the best reason to run Linux, the best reason to be involved in Linux. There are other people that use Linux for other reasons, like open source software or the flexibility of it or to customize it. What is it that drives your passion for Linux?
It's the community, without a doubt. I mean, hey, it's even in my title. Mentorship had made me who I was. It really helped me break down a lot of walls, and to be turning around and mentoring other people and seeing, man, just how much they grow. Like, no, I'll never be a kernel developer. However, I've mentored someone who is working on becoming a kernel developer. I will never be a developer. It's not my interest. But the amount of developers that I have mentored through their first talks and just sitting out there and being like, you know what, this is cool. Like, I could retire tomorrow and my legacy would go on, because if I mentor someone, the number one thing that I ask is they turn around and mentor someone else. And, one of my mentees that I started mentoring about my first year at Rackspace recently joined me at Linux Academy. And that has to be one of the proudest moments I ever had. Like, I don't know. That was a very mama moment for me where I was like, I did this. Like, I made this. I mean, she did it by herself, but I don't know. It's really just the community that I can get behind because other people did it for me.
Yep. And that's what it is. You help somebody, they help somebody else, and that's how it grows. So there's all kinds of different users in Linux. New users, middle of the road, intermediate, advanced users. I would say I won't say that I'm not a technical user. As far as I don't consider myself one, I consider myself just an intermediate. How do we bridge the gap between all of these different vast levels of people and get them on the same page?
I don't know if you're going to like my answer, but I think that we do it by removing those labels. The whole project that I've started is this concept of it's okay to be new. And in my theory, I don't care if you were there the day that, Linus announced that he was going to work on Linux. You know what? Are you working on the Linux subsystem for Windows? Because that wasn't around then, and that's something for you to be new at. Are you working in containers? Because I know so many people who are so far into virtualization, but have been terrified to do that. Go be new there. Like, have what you're good at and be technical at that, but constantly be learning. And if you're always learning, you're going to be less judgmental of others who are doing the same because you know what it's like. And we just kind of remove those barriers. Like, I'm good at this, you're good at that, let's work together.
But see, that to me is awesome because that is the part of working together. Like in the BIDL community, for the Big Daddy Linux Live community, there is so much of a broad spectrum of people at all different levels. And we all come together and we're able to talk about Linux and work together and help each other through problems and issues. And I'm not trying to put labels on it. I'm just trying to say, this is where somebody is at this moment. But you talked about it's okay to be new, and you have a whole movement in that. You have stickers that say it's okay to be new. And I think it's awesome that you don't need to know everything. You don't need to be this superstar. So how has the overall response to this been?
Overall, it's been good. Overall, a lot of people have been very accepting of, I've been around for a while and I just never felt like I could ask these questions. And I see you doing it, so I went out and did it. I did a talk around the subject and actually had someone crying in the back of the room. And it was the most surreal experience because you kind of want to stop and figure out what's going on, but you just kind of go through it because you don't want to call them out. And afterwards they come up and they're just like, I think I need to leave my job. And I was like, that's not what I intended. Please stop. Let's back this up. And she goes, no, if there are companies out there that are willing to teach you, why am I doing this every day? And maybe that's it. Like, the movement is really, don't surround yourself with people who don't let you grow. It's not even so much about being new. It's about just accepting that we can change the status quo, that it doesn't have to be this way. I have had a few people get, I don't want to say, violent, but get upset, visibly upset when I start talking about it and start questioning about, well, isn't there a place for what I call toxicity in it? It's because people said these negative things to you that you pushed through and that you became who you were. They helped spur you on. And I don't agree. There are some of us that are able to survive it, but I think the amount of amazing people that we've lost in tech because of it just isn't worth the price.
No, I don't think that's not a requirement to be told all of this toxic stuff to say that, oh, well, you got to overcome that. That's definitely not a requirement. So you talked about, you've related a few minor stories about the Linux community as far as good and bad, but overall, how do you think the community has treated you personally or the people around you?
I'm really happy you're asking me this question now, because if you'd asked me 5 years ago, it would be very different. I actually left the Linux community for a little bit and I went to OpenStack because I just felt it was too toxic. Like, I could not survive. And that open source community was very different. So I was really hesitant to come back, but when I did, things have changed. People are willing to mentor, people are willing to help, people are open to you asking questions, which I didn't feel was a thing before. And, I recently saw somebody accidentally give the wrong information out on Twitter. And instead of jumping on him and just doing what we normally would have done, people started educating and sending links and going, actually, did you know that? And so it seems like we've gone from a culture of I told you so to a culture of did you know? And I love that. Like, this is something I can get behind.
Yep.
A
Well,
very roundabout way to answer that. But
well, I mean, we really did have a bad reputation in Linux for being just toxic or even just unfriendly. You know what I mean? And I think every passing year that I've been in Linux, it's gotten better. To the point now where, like you said, people are willing to help you. They're willing to answer your questions and do it in a friendly way. So what do we do to further that and make that experience better?
I think we do it through mentorship. I really do believe that every person, regardless of how new they are, needs to be both a mentor and a mentee, because that's really how you grow yourself, is by, do you really know what you think you know? Because the moment you start explaining it to someone else and they start asking you questions, you realize you're not as much of an expert as you think you are. And at the same time, when you're being mentored, it gives you that safe place to be able to go and say, I've tried, I just can't, like, I cannot figure this out. And I tried coding for a while. I really did. I tried my hardest to learn Python, and I tried through books and Python the hard way and just failed every time. And I just kind of tweeted out about it. And this guy named Ryan's like, I bet I could teach you to program. And I'm like, what? He goes, all right, you're going to this conference. Let's just sit at this table. And he got me excited. He taught me some of the basics of how I have to change the way that I think in order to be able to program. And I went back to my hotel and had written a Hangman application that used little emojis by the end of that night.
Nice.
I've never been able to even get a grocery list app going. And you know what? The cool thing was that he was so proud that he actually went up to my GitHub and he's offering improvements and showing me how I could fix my code. And then he goes, okay, so what's the next one? Like, he didn't just let me drop it.
Yep.
And I think that right there, that's mentorship. That's not help. That's mentorship. And if everyone had someone in their life just going, so what's next? I think we could go so far.
That's awesome. It is awesome when you find somebody like that. And to me, there's not enough people that are willing to mentor people like that.
I think everyone needs to do it, man. Everybody.
So my friend Michael Tennell recently gave a talk down at Self about how bad Linux is at marketing itself. Mm-hmm. So do you agree with that we are bad at marketing? And one, what do we need to do to change that? Or do we even need to change that?
I think Linux markets to itself. Like, you go and you present at a conference about a subject to other people who are already in that subject. Nobody is really making it a priority to go and teach other people outside of our circles. And I don't really know if anybody cares, to be honest with you. I'm getting to the point where I look at what my kids are doing and they're living in an OS agnostic world. Like, they don't care what's running their applications as long as their applications work. So I don't know if we can get past that. I do myself go out and, if I have a relative, they have to run Linux if I'm going to be able to help them with their box. And
that's the rule.
So, yeah. But in the end, I had my mom on Corora for a while. And then when that project ended, I moved her over to Fedora. And I was trying to explain to her what was different. And I'm like, she doesn't care. If she can go to Google, she can go to Facebook. The OS doesn't matter. So yep. I don't know.
Well, that's a majority of users out there that really don't care, as long as they can just do what they want to do. Like, not everybody does hours worth of work on the computer. They just want to maybe watch Netflix or do something like that. And I don't think I agree. I don't think they really care as long as they can do that. All right. So you have been to, again, many conferences and fests. Do you have a favorite one that you go to?
So my favorite conference, hands down, without a doubt, is B-Side San Antonio. It was the first conference I ever attended. And it continues to be the one conference that I try my hardest not to volunteer at. I end up speaking because I'm asked, but I just want to attend it. It is the conference that encompasses everything that I believe about teaching and not preaching. So I've never been to this conference and heard a talk that says, look how amazing I am. Look at this cool thing I did. Every talk is, look at this cool thing I did. Let me show you how to do it. And they do an amazing job about having hands-on activities. They have, lock picking village. They have hardware, soldering. They have a 3D printing village. And it's family friendly, which is not a lot of conferences. And I don't mean, hey, I could bring my kids. I mean, my kids are sitting down and learning how to pick locks. My kids are doing an escape room that's teaching them how to open locks through a command line. And there are people there who aren't like, oh, she brought her kids. There are people there who are like, oh, let me show you this.
Yep.
So, man, if I could find that community everywhere, every day, I'd be so happy.
That would be awesome. But that goes back to like teaching people and helping people, because like those type of things where, like you said, oh, I brought my kids, that environment is not easily out there. You know what I mean? Like you don't find that very often. So yeah, that is something I would probably enjoy to go to.
So, hey, next year.
All right. Maintaining software, maintaining Linux itself, a desktop environment, distros or whatever, is not always problem free. Comes with some issues, some caused by the user, some not. What is like one of your favorite things? I don't know if that goes together, favorite and things that went wrong, but what is one thing that went wrong that you fixed and it was awesome?
So this actually, some people know this story because it comes from my talk, but back when I was a Linux admin, no one explained to me what a cluster was. And so I was working on a MySQL cluster on a database, I guess, a bunch of servers. And someone had taught me about this cool tool called Terminator that allowed you to broadcast out to multiple boxes at one time. Great idea, right? So I'm working this maintenance and I don't know why they've allocated 2 hours to this. We're doing an update and then we're restarting the boxes. Like I can just run this across everything through this awesome broadcast tool. And then we restart it and we're back. I restarted every single node in a MySQL production cluster for a bank. I found out what had occurred because Twitter started blowing up where people couldn't get their money because, of course, the servers didn't come up the way they were expected to go up. That's why we're supposed to do them one at a time, by the way. Oops. Yeah. So that customer was obviously not very happy. They did not like me much. But I learned more about MySQL and rollbacks than I had ever learned in my life. And it was funny because after that, every time we had one of these maintenances, they're like, hey, let Elle do it. Like nothing could go wrong that I could not fix at that point. Knock on wood.
Hey, but you got the worst out of the way, right?
This was also the second day that I had ever worked at that company.
Oh my gosh.
So, it's so weird to be proud of that. But you know what? I survived. I didn't get fired. I can actually work my way around a cluster pretty well. I can spin up a MySQL instance really easy now.
Yep.
So sometimes you have to embrace those failures. And what Ali always tells me is, Elle, just fail forward. Okay.
Then you're one step ahead. You fail forward. So we have, in Linux, we have like communities, like I talked about at the intro. We have YouTube communities. We have podcast communities, we have developers. They don't always communicate together like as one. You'll see some bleed over as far as some people will get a hold of developers or podcasters like I'm talking to you. What do you think we can do as to try to find the best place for everybody to be able to learn the way they want to? Like everybody learns differently. As far as some people watch a video and they learn that way, or they read a tutorial or a wiki. What can we do to bring all of our resources together?
I don't think it's an answer that I can give for everyone. Unfortunately, I think this is a question that everybody has to ask themselves about how they can kind of traverse different communities. I'm lucky that from the start, I've been a habitual volunteer. So I've never had this problem. Like I'm quite active in the OpenStack world. I ran their mentorship program for a while. I'm not a developer, but the developers here in San Antonio needed a place to meet. And so I was like, okay, hey, I can help find one and I'll bring tacos. And suddenly I'm sponsoring them and I'm really active in their Slack channel. And I have questions I go and ask them. And, obviously I'm involved in Linux and I help put on the Kubernetes meetup here. And we're all just one big family. And I think I've gotten to a point where I don't ask, what can they do for me? I ask, what can I do for them? And you know what? Eventually it comes back because it never fails. Eventually I know someone who needs something and I'm like, you know what? Let me go ask the developers real quick. Or I know a guy who wrote a course about Kubernetes. Let me go ask him. If you find how you can give back to your community, I think that you'll find that it gives back way more than you've ever given.
I think one of the biggest questions I get is, I don't have a lot of money to donate. I don't know what to do to give back to the community.
Time. Give your time. I helped put on a conference here called Texas Cyber Summit, and I know nothing about security. I am the biggest security fangirl you will ever meet, but I don't work in it, and I just don't tout that flag yet. And I wrote them and I was like, I'm really good at organizing conferences. I can help you set up the rooms. I'll move tables. I'll help work registration. And then suddenly I'm moving up to being a co-organizer now at this point, because they know I'm going to show up. They know I'm going to be there when I said I'm going to be there. And they know I'll help out however I can. So I think that they would easily rather have my time than any type of money sponsorship that I could give.
Yep. And money is not always what people need. It is that time. It is that effort made by someone that they need in different ways. But like you said, like just helping out at a conference, at the end of Self, we started breaking down some of the tables and helping clean up and whatever. And that wasn't anything that was hard. It was just you volunteered your time and you helped out.
I had somebody come up to a conference, at a conference to me and told me how hard it was for them to even be there. They have a few, I guess they're neurodiverse. It was very hard for them to even get to this one event, but they were still looking for a way that they could give back because they felt they wanted to contribute to the community. So I asked her, I was like, how are your language skills? Do you speak any other languages? She's like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm not a developer, and starts telling me all the things she wasn't. I was like, write the docs. Everyone needs documentation. If you speak another language, help translate the docs because that's needed. If you have grammatical skills, you know what? Help fix the docs so that they're actually understandable. And if you don't have either of those, go tackle something new and document the way that you did it and put it on the official docs instead of on SourceForge.
Yep.
Everyone can find a way to give back. One thing that I was told a long time ago that I love is that contribution is more than code.
Contribution is way more than code in the areas that people, like we talked before about what people need. Again, I'll go back to whatever it is that you can do to help out. That's what is important at that moment. Like at a conference, it's not important that you're donating money right then. What's important is they need help right then and there with that specific thing. That's awesome. All right. Where do you think Linux is headed in the grand scheme of things? Do you think we're headed for the ultimate year of the desktop? Or are we, are there going to be more and more people that really don't care what they run, like we said?
I love that I keep hearing the comment, year of the desktop. I think we're so far beyond that at this point. I don't know if that should even be a goal. They're like, oh, Linux on every desktop. Why? How many people are actually using desktops? We're in the year of the tablet, but the smartphone, but I know a few people who are getting, cybernetic implants. Like, let's move beyond that. I really do believe we're getting to the point where the operating system is only important to the developers and people creating the things behind it. All we're going to care about is the apps. I mean, day to day, if I could get every app that I need to run on a Chromebook, man, just give me the Chromebook.
Yep. Because that's what's going to work for you and your specific circumstance.
And I love how when I say that, people are like, oh, but did you know that a Chromebook is actually using Linux? yeah, but I don't care. I just want it to work. You're missing the point.
All right. If you could change one thing about Linux, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. My first instinct is to say how many distributions there are. I almost said another word. How many friendly distributions there are. Just because I think that we turn into, they're not even OS wars, they're distribution wars. We're so worried about what distribution someone else is running. Well, I run Arch. Cool for you. Does it do it? Oh no, it's broken. That's great. Like, I don't know what you're bragging about. No, nothing against Arch. That's just always what my comical thing is, that, you know, it's Fedora against, you know, Ubuntu, or it's, you know, Arch against everybody else. And it's not the distributions that are against each other. It's the people using them. And I don't like that. Like, oh, well, I use KDE. Cool. I use XFCE right now. And then I was using GNOME the other day. And like, why is this a thing? It's not a badge of honor. It's a tool. Like, hey, I use a hammer. Cool, but you're fixing a pipe. Wouldn't a wrench work better? Like,
It is, though. A lot of people will walk around and say, hey, you know, I run this operating system, or I run this, you know, and you'll find this more when the further you get advanced in Linux. So the further you get advanced, the more you try, you know, you'll try out different operating systems. You'll try Arch, you'll try the window managers, and then you find that more people using that type of environments will act like it's a badge of honor rather than just a tool to use to get things done.
yep. And so if we could change that, that would make me very happy.
All right. So thinking back to all of the reasons that you chose to use Linux, do they still apply today?
Well, to be honest with you, I chose Linux originally because I needed a job. But
Does that still apply today?
yes, I still need, I know, choosing Linux has enabled me to, I always wanted to change the world. And that seems like a very weird thing to say. But growing up, I wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to go and change people's lives. And by choosing Linux, I was able to get a job where that's kind of what I do. Like, I help people believe in themselves. And I know that sounds so cocky, but I see it every day. And I'll be at a conference and somebody will come up and they're like, you know, I didn't think I could do this. And then I took your course on containers and I just understood. Or, you know what, I just went and asked somebody and now I have a mentor. And I don't know, like, it's been really fulfilling. And no matter all the bad stuff that happened and the neck bearding and the horrible comments that I got when I was starting out about, you know, going through a women's only Linux group, it's all been worth it. It's all been okay just for those moments. So yeah, if I had it all to do over again, I would still choose Linux.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to share with people?
You know, I think we've said it over and over. And I think I just want to remind everybody that it's not only okay to be new, but you should be. If you're not learning, then you're stagnant, and nobody wants to be that. So that one thing that you've been playing around with, going, man, I wish I had time, or man, I wish I could have, just go do it. Go break it. What's really the worst that can happen?
I can do that. I can break things. All right. How can people get in touch with you?
So I live on Twitter, and it's really easy to find me at L_O_punk, at LOPunk.
All right. That wraps up our discussion. Thank you so much, Elle, for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you for joining us this week as we spotlight the best thing about Linux, our community. Until next time, long live Linux. Podcast 101. Yep. Okay, so there's a powerful thunderstorm going through right now, so I just lost power. The UPS kicked in.
And one of the guys walks up to me and closes it on me and says, "Oh, sorry about that."
Man. in the middle of such a great story. I can't believe it. Like, lost your audience. See, this is why you don't record during a thunderstorm. Let's see, where were we?
Breaking things?
Breaking things, yeah. Thank you all for watching. Yeah.
Tune in next week for outtakes.
Okay. Because I got so tired of... Hey, look at that.
Don't die.
That's an emergency alert about a flash flood.
Well, it's better than an Amber Alert.
You volunteered your time and you helped out.
We lost audio again.
Great. I love it.
Yeah. What's funny is we both do this for a living, so we're like, neither of us has ever encountered this. Oop, I think your audio cut out. What was the question?
Hold on, let me check my audio. Stand by. Hold on. Your audio cut out. Really? It's not your audio. It's actually my connection, but it's your audio cut out. So, wow. I have never had so many problems in one interview. I am so sorry.
I'm just loving. I'm gonna love to see your edit of this thing.
I have never in all of the Destination Linux episodes that I was involved with, and I've never had an issue like this. Never.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yay.
You're back.
I promise it's not my connection. I keep
No, it's not your connection. I'm sure it is my connection, but I honestly have never had an issue like this where the connection just keeps dropping. I actually
ran a speed test during last one, and I was like, what's going on? We work in tech. Yes, it's broken, and it's fine. There's your clip.
Yeah, right?
Fine.
Well, a lot of this is going in the outtakes. Just saying.
So, okay, right. That was 2 words, but no.
See, so go ahead. Say something.
All right, what's the usual? Little lady dainty hands. Little lady dainty hands. You can thank Joe Resington for that one.
Oh my gosh, Joe. He's killing me. So seriously, what are you trying right now?
So I just finished breaking, and I kid you not, right now I cannot get Endeavor OS to come back.
What did you do to it?
I swear to God, I can show you my change log.
I'm not familiar with cubes, I don't think.
So go and listen to the episode.
I know it's there. I've seen it. That's perfect. That's going to be in there. Oh, my gosh.
I've gotten used to using my mouse. Like, I get it. You know, as Linux admins, we're supposed to use the keyboard. But I don't want to click Control-Shift-Z instead of just a button. Really? Like, I don't know.
You're back. But your audio's not back yet, so we gotta wait a minute. We're gonna get through this.
Okay.
We're gonna get through. I can't understand you.
So it's 2 words. First word.
We're gonna get through this. A little bit yet to go.
The whole thing, it'll just be comical, and this light is making me sweat.
There may be a few outtakes, just saying. Throwing it out there.
I love it.
Like, this should have been way easier of a discussion, because you're like such an easy person to talk to, and yet just interruption after interruption. So I appreciate your patience.
I need to edit this one, so man, I'm out. I feel like we should do this.